Welcome to Music Mania. I am your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I'm sorry that this video is like a month late, talking about November albums and EPs basically at the end of December. It's been a little bit. Definitely didn't have enough time to get through this video and actually put it out before I went on a week and a half plus long trip, and that was on account of being sick and some other stuff going on at the very end of December, very end of November and very beginning of December. It's been honestly a crazy couple of months for me, but we are finally back on the train getting to November albums now. Fortunately for me, there were not that many November albums to listen to. There were like a couple like deluxe albums and other re-release stuff that I didn't get to that should optimally be included in this video, so there's only like 9 things to rank as opposed to the 20 to 30 that the last few months have given me, but that's okay. It means that I'll have a little bit of a shorter time getting through what I need to get through today, so let's not beat around the bush. I do have 9 albums and EPs to talk about and rank from least favorite to favorite, so let's switch over to my desktop and start with my least favorite album of the month. And that was Another Miracle by Of Mice and Men. Of Mice and Men just kind of seem to be like this really hit or miss group. With every album that releases, you'll have one that's like a big hit and another one that's like not people's favorite or anything remotely along those lines, and this kind of seems to go back and forth. I think this is the first Of Mice and Men album I've actually listened to since like their 2018 release or something like that. I don't even think I listened to the 2019 album, which was one that even a lot of my friends said was really good. So maybe it was a mistake to return to Of Mice and Men with Another Miracle, because this record is just not fantastic. I'm not the type of person to typically complain too horribly much about metalcore being boring or formulaic or whatever. Oftentimes some of the more boring or formulaic or simple stuff can be some of my favorites, and we'll see an example of this later in this video. But Another Miracle just bored me to tears personally, and that is rather unfortunate. I don't like saying that. Even I have to say that, yeah, this album just really did not do it for me. I'll get the listened at dates for all of these albums done later. I'll fix it later. Normally, I would have all this done ahead of time, but I'm running out of time, so I'll do it later after the fact. But anyway, like I said, I just don't really like, calling albums boring or anything along those lines, but I just did not really like Another Miracle very much. It just did nothing for me. Contact here, the track that I labeled as my favorite, might actually be the only real standout track here. I think the other two I just kind of forced a couple more standouts relatively, but I just don't remember anything about this album at all at this point, because there's just nothing going on. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Another Miracle. Next up is an EP that I really wish I could have ranked higher than I am currently ranking right now, and that is Deadlocked US's Bitter Murmur. I am acquaintances with at least one of the members of this band, Sean Horniak, I believe, who's like the guitarist, I believe, behind the project. There are a couple great songs on this EP. Gutless in particular, when they released that as a single, was just incredible. Really like it. But the EP as a whole, I guess, just isn't really doing exactly what it is that I wanted. I suppose there are some interesting ideas here. I really like the kind of like spectacle of it as far as music goes, but it's definitely not my favorite thing in the world. It's pretty solid, but not a whole lot more than solid. I recommend giving it a shot, but it's definitely not something that like I love from this year, for example. So it's good, just not anything much beyond being good, in my opinion. Next up is an EP that I wish I could actually rank and review in here, but I can't, and that is Holy Names 3-Bar Cross, and that is because for whatever reason the page just isn't working. It isn't loading. There are some times when these pages just don't load properly when they're the first time being viewed, and they take a long time to work. Given how long the EP has been out, I would have expected for this page to work, but currently it does not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rate the artist for now in place of the album, or in place of the EP. I would say the EP is pretty solid. Let me just clarify over in here and just say that it's the EP review, because that would be good to know. The EP is pretty solid. I think it is more interesting dynamically as far as like what it is doing sonically than what it is like actually incredible, I would say. Like, there's a lot of like orthodox like chanting type of vibe stuff going in there, as far as like a Christian soundscape, secular versus the more sacred soundscape, and some of the more chanty vocal stuff in there was really cool to experience, and some of those types of melodies in there makes it pretty interesting for what it is overall, but just doesn't really do a whole lot beyond that. So yeah, and I guess the other thing that holds it back is the fact that it is only like 3 songs. And I think it would have done a lot more for me if it was like 5 or 6, so that it could have some time to really settle in rather than just like be there and then disappear in just a second. So next up is the new EP by NF, which more or less came out of nowhere when it did end up dropping in November. And the EP is solid. I think it is good. I think that if you like the soundscape of Hope, you're going to like Fear a lot, but I guess judging by this rating here, people aren't particularly in love with the EP, and that's more or less where I fall. I don't think that the EP's bad by any means. I just kind of miss a different soundscape from NF personally. I think that what's it called? The Search and Clouds are like that. Those 2 albums are what I really like from NF, and the stuff prior to that is good, but I basically never revisit. Some specific songs on Perception I come back to a bit, but then like Hope, there's a few songs that I really love, but the rest just don't click for me. And Fear, on account of being largely similar soundscape, is basically the same thing for me, where it's just not really what I'm looking for from NF sonically, and given that he goes back to a little bit of a darker lyrical tone throughout most of the EP, it doesn't fully click with that sonic route for whatever reason. Also, I'm not sure that the features on this EP really worked, like Who I Was featuring MGK. MGK did not work on this NF song at all, and that's not even, on account of me not liking MGK personally or anything. I've listened to exactly one of his songs in my life, and that was the Eminem diss 1.5 million years ago. So I basically don't have an opinion on MGK, for example, but like, he did not work on Who I Was, for example. So there are a couple songs here that are good. I really like Home as the title track. I think Sorry is pretty good, despite the feature, but there's not much else that's going on here that I think is really worth, checking out beyond NF's past work. I think if you want to check out NF stuff, if you love NF, you love him, but if you don't already love him, I think like Clouds is probably his objective best release. So, that's where I fall here. Next up is an EP that I'm really surprised to be putting where I have it ranked in here, like in 5th place or something along those lines. That is Fall Weather's EP, You for Life. And the reason why I'm surprised by putting this here is because these guys released an EP like in January or something like that. I forget what it was called. They probably, what is it like? I guess maybe it was technically in 2024, but I'm pretty sure it was actually like in the first couple weeks of this year. Music Board doesn't always have the dates exactly right on everything. But that EP wasn't great. I did not like that EP basically at all. I think there was one song on it that I thought was actively enjoyable, and the rest of it just did not do anything for me. This EP was solid, however. It was like a pretty good 3.5 out of 5 to me. And, just like I was saying, it was like I went into this expecting not to like it on account of the last EP, but like all the songs here actually kind of resonated with me more musically than the last EP did, I guess. So I don't know what it is between the two that is different. I should listen to them back to back to find out. But this EP, for whatever inexplicable reason, actually kind of clicked with me. So that is pretty cool. Next up is arguably the most standout release of the month insofar as like general reaction in the groups that I'm a part of. That is Netherwalker's Odyssey of Respair. And that is because it definitely falls in line with this, blackened deathcore sound that like Lorna Shore has normalized this decade, and that a lot of other bands have done. And Netherwalker does another take on that formula, and there happens to be a lot of people who think that it is a really solid take on that formula. And I'm inclined to agree. I like it because I like that soundscape a lot. But I think I need to listen to this more and give it more of a chance to grow on me a bit. I think that the lyrical, or maybe not the lyrical, the vocal decisions are a little bit over the top. You know, people going for that Will Ramos, let's see just how crazy we can make the vocals sound type of energy. There's a lot of songs on this album that are just like, okay, what are you even doing with your voice there? Which is cool, but that's not what I'm in deathcore for. That's not what I listen to the music for. That is not why I enjoy Will Ramos's vocals, for example, even though I do really enjoy Will Ramos. So Nether Walker, like, of focusing on certain things within this particular soundscape that aren't necessarily exactly what I want, but the album is still really good. Like, this is one that rating 3.5 feels like a snub to me. I feel like I should probably be rating it 4 out of 5 instead, but again, I think that it's one that I need to come back to more listens. I would also like to get lyrics for this because I've heard it's a concept album, and I love concept albums, so maybe if I was able to follow along with this in that kind of context, I would like it a little bit even more. But even so, record is still super solid, so you know, I'm not going to complain about it. It is my 4th favorite of the month. And from this point on, I believe the rest of these albums are 4 out of 5, and this one is like borderline 4 out of 5, basically. So that's where that sits. Next up is The Pretty Wilds. I believe their debut full record is 0 Point Genesis, and this record really surprised me to the degree that I am kind of mad that I hadn't listened to them before, like when any of the singles had come out or anything. I'd been kind of avoiding them for whatever reason, not for any specific reason, just because I kind of was, like, I had friends who were like big fans of what they were doing, and I was like, yeah, I'll check it out whenever the full album comes out. And after listening to the full album, 0 Point Genesis, I'm actually kind of mad that I waited that long, because like this was really good. I think the first half of the album particularly is just great. It is very good, very surprising. I just wasn't expecting for the songwriting here to be as solid as it was, and for it to be as dynamic as it was, and to do what I really like as far as being able to combine a lot of melodious focus with vocals and the songwriting, but also still having really solid riffs and good breakdown moments. Pretty Wild definitely did a great balance of those elements on this album. Like I said, just surprised me a ton, so they deserve being in the top 3 of the month for me. The next one of these is going to make people mad, however, and that is Flowers by The Devil Wears Prada. I don't think I've listened to a single thing by The Devil Wears Prada in full, except for like maybe the Zombie EP, assuming that that's even The Devil Wears Prada, because that could be a different band. I forget off the top of my head. That goes to show just how not familiar I am with this band's work. I believe their last album, like, was it called Slow Decay or something like that, got a lot of praise last year or the year before, whenever it was that it came out. That it was really solid amongst like core fans and stuff. And this record is not as heavy at all. I had a friend who was just like, I can't believe that Skillet's new Christmas song is heavier than the entire new Devil Wears Prada album, which is like kind of a funny joke to make. It's not 100% true, but I can definitely see where it's coming from. And I understand why not everybody would click with this. This is a case of an album that I really should not enjoy as much as I do. And I don't really have a way to explain why I enjoy it so much. It's kind of like the new Attack Attack album. You know, something that's like, I understand why people aren't into this. I understand why it's not doing what people want, and I understand why I probably shouldn't like it as much as I do, but I just do. It was a fun record. There's a lot of melodies that I really liked, a lot of songwriting moments that just got to me for reasons that I genuinely can't explain. You know, there's a lot of moments that feel pretty modern, Bring Me the Horizon, and I can understand that being a criticism as well, but for whatever reason, I just really liked this album. So sue me, I guess. I don't know what to say, just that I liked it a lot. That's about all I have. Yeah, I liked Flowers a lot. It was my second favorite album of the month. Definitely a surprise. This one surprised me more than The Pretty Wild did, because like I expected to like The Pretty Wild. I did not expect to like Flowers. I just didn't. So the fact that I did was a surprise. But that's going to take us into my number 1 album of November, and that is Angel Maker's This Used to Be Heaven. This is a band that like I should really pay more attention to or think about more often in my brain, because every time they release an album, I like it a lot, and then I like forget they exist. You know, their last album, Sanctum, in 2022 was a record that I kind of slept on, in the sense that I really liked it when I listened to it, and I have not listened to it since. Even though I remember that definitely being a standout of 2022. And I think that This Used to Be Heaven is probably going to get like much the same treatment from me, where it's like, yeah, that was a really great album. And then as soon as I'm done talking about it, I just forget that the album exists, and I forget that the band exists. I just do that a lot. I should also say I was pretty worried about this one given the change in vocalist, but because deathcore vocals can be samey enough that a change in vocalist doesn't always make the biggest difference. There are some times when it does make a pretty big difference for me, but it's pretty rare. The change in vocalist for Angel Maker, one of the vocalists anyway, because they have 2 of them, didn't affect the quality of the writing on the album, so that's good. At least. Yeah, so I enjoyed This Used to Be Heaven a lot. It is my album of the month in November, and I mean, that's not really that surprising. I like Angel Maker a lot. I just happen to forget they exist most of the time, which is a me problem. So maybe I should fix that problem. But that's going to take us into the ranking for the month, I guess. You know, you're not going to see 3 Bar Cross ranked in here because that album the EP was having issues. There's a couple of these album covers that aren't really working in here. So, you know, you get the full picture of Another Miracle should be in 9, 8, 7, and then, you know, just move things in accordance with 3 Bar Cross being in rank 7 here, in between Fear and Bitter Murmur, instead of not on the list. So that'll be fixed at some point. But yeah, that is all that I have to talk about as far as the 9 records that I listened to in November. There are a couple re-releases and like deluxe versions from the month that I still need to go back and listen to that I just didn't really have the time or the brain space to get back to. So maybe I'll do that before I do top 10 or just generally my album of the year list in 2026, but we'll see what I get done. This is just where things sit for November. So thank you for watching this video. If you did, I really appreciate it. Let me know what your favorite albums and EPs were in November, and feel free to tell me just how incredibly wrong I am for some of my opinions here, like putting Flowers so high up, for example, and Netherwalker being in the middle of the road instead of at the top. Feel free to comment all that down below. But for now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in next week's video, because I'm going to be doing Music Mania again in a week's time, talking about the handful of December releases that there are to talk about. But again, there's not really that much to talk about in December either. So yeah, that's how things are going to go. I'll see you guys next week, or at least I certainly hope so.